Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome back. My name is Katey Unfiltered, and on my channel, I like to talk about makeup, TV, whatever it is that captures my interest. You're always going to get my unfiltered take. And today is another episode of my series, Grey's Anatomy and Makeup. I sit down, I play with makeup, and I talk about the latest episode of Grey's Anatomy. So if that sounds like your thing, if you're into makeup, if you're into Grey's Anatomy, if you're into both, this is definitely the series for you. So kick back, grab a cocktail, grab a palette, let's play, let's hang out, let's do this. Because there's just a lot. There's a lot. I have a lot to say. I have a lot of feelings, and I've actually delayed making this video a little bit because I just have so many emotions about this latest episode. So if you are watching along with me, this is episode 8 of season 17. I watched it last night, and I have also rewatched it in preparation for this video, and I just have a lot of feelings. Mainly because, full disclosure, last year, oh no, that's not what I meant to do. Oh. We're just going to pretend that didn't happen, and we're just going to keep going. But oh my gosh, guys, I had this perfect plan for how I wanted this look to come forward, and I had all these ideas for shaping this look, and I just went in so hard with the wrong color. I can't believe I did that. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're going to make this work, but this is not off to a great start. Okay, well, we're just gonna keep going, guys. But this is all part of it, right? I sit here, I do my makeup. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You guys all remember the black lips from a few weeks ago. It is what it is. The point of this series is to sit down and have fun and play with makeup and try new things, not to always nail it. And sometimes we make mistakes, happy little makeup mistakes, and we're just gonna roll with it and we're gonna figure it out. But oh, I can't believe I did that. Let's get this back on track. By the way, right now I am using this Orange You Glad palette from Colourpop. I love this, and there was something about today. I woke up and I was like, bitch, we're doing orange. We're doing it. It's the middle of March. And I don't know, I was feeling an orange fantasy today. Not this orange fantasy. This was not in the plan, but we're just gonna figure that out. It's gonna be fine. Back to Grey's Anatomy. This episode was particularly challenging to watch. Not challenging in a bad way, actually challenging in a good way. If you remember last week, I was talking a lot about how I wanted the grittiness back. I wanted the emotion back. I just felt like Grey's last week was a little devoid of the heartbreak and the ruin my week vibes. I want to be so sad after I watch Grey's Anatomy that it literally ruins my day. And especially with such an important death, I really feel like they missed the mark in how they handled DELUCA's death last week. And so going into this week, I had very low expectations. And you know what? That wasn't really fair because this was an excellent episode. And I also watched Station 19 before watching Grey's Anatomy. They're basically the same story at this point, and all the characters are intermingled. So if you aren't watching Station 19, but you're continuing to watch Grey's Anatomy, you are missing parts of the story. And frankly, Station 19 is a really excellent program. So if you're not watching, you should. And I know that this is a Grey's Anatomy series, but like I said, it's part of the story. It's the same story. It's the same characters. It's if you watch a Marvel movie, you've got to watch all of them to really get the full story, to really appreciate all of the characters. Same thing with Grey's Anatomy. If you're going to watch Grey's Anatomy, you got to watch Station 19. And oh my goodness, just watching Karina and the way that she mourns her brother felt so accurate and so realistic. There was something so incredible and beautiful about it. And as someone who last year lost their own father, and has been really deep in the grieving process myself, there was something about watching Karina mourned the loss of her brother that really felt real and accurate and honest. And the way that they handled that story was just like perfect. I mean, I definitely was this like lump on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, cuddled with my dog, just like sobbing for a couple of hours. Really just an incredible episode of Station 19 that led into a really, really great episode of Grey's Anatomy. And Grey's Anatomy this week was really all about that grieving process. And we followed all of the different characters in their grief and in how they were handling that. And I felt like, again, just a super honest representation of how different people grieve. I really, really enjoyed it. I think my favorite storyline was arguably the storyline with Joe, Link, and Jackson, where they all kind of hung out in this episode. And if you remember last week, I was like, I need more of all of those characters. And so it was really exciting to see a lot of focus on them and see them all together, which you don't normally get. And I thought that was pretty cool. Let's talk about Link first, because I think what Link is going through is really unique and interesting, where he is effectively, you know, a new dad on his own with Amelia, but then he's also taking care of all of Meredith's kids. And he didn't really sign up for that, but he's a good person. And, you know, it's his sister's brother's kids, or it's his girlfriend's dead brother's kids. So not really like a super direct link there, but I thought it was really, really cool how Link was willing to step up and take that on. And also just that the show was willing to talk about what he was going through honestly in relation to Amelia's sobriety. And, you know, I think so far in the show, he's really been portrayed as like this perfect guy without a lot of problems in relation to how he stepped up to be a dad to all these kids. And the fact that they were able to touch on that in such a real and a fun way, where he added a little bit of comedy, but it also created an honest conversation of, if you're someone that's in a relationship with someone who is sober, but you are not, how does that work? And the toll that the situation with Meredith's kids has taken on him and taken on Amelia, and how they can care for each other. I really feel like the show's done a good job developing the relationship between Amelia and Link, and has been honest to the fact that like they definitely started out in this very interesting, like kind of casual way, but you know, they found love in a hopeless place, and now they're together and they have a kid, and now COVID, and they're taking care of other people's kids, and how this community of doctors has come together too to support each other. I really like it, and I feel like it's been really honest, and the way that they've always handled Amelia has been very unafraid to address addiction, and also address someone that has been through a lot of loss, who's gone through the loss of her father and her brother, and, you know, all of these different things. And so I really, really respected that. And I respected that the show didn't shy away from saying like, hey, they're still dealing with very human problems. They're still adults that, you know, what am I trying to say? I think parents, it's easy for people to forget that parents are people, and you see these really vulnerable moments with Link in the show that I really, really liked. I also really like to see the development of the relationship between Joe and Jackson, and seeing more of them together, and how they're really surviving together was really, really cool. And seeing Joe just still kind of going through her own grieving process with Alex leaving, but at the same time becoming a healthier person and trying to chase her bliss by going into OB. Just thought that that was really great. One thing that's going on that I have a lot of thoughts about is Meredith is still on the ventilator and is still on her dream beach. That's what I'm going to call it. She's on her like dream beach, where she's, I think it's supposed to represent like whether or not she's going to live or die, and that she's just got to decide whether or not to live or die. And the show has touched on this dynamic with Meredith in the past. I believe it was in season 2 or 3. She basically almost drowns and Derek saves her, but she's in critical condition, and we see her in this kind of like dreamlight state, walking around the hospital and seeing her dead mother and seeing dead patients. That really had an impact on her. And she is in a really depressed state at the time, and is basically like giving up on her own life, and is basically like, do I stay and fight for my life, or do I go and just like let myself die? Essentially, it's Meredith is dealing with some really serious suicidal tendencies in that episode back earlier in the show. And I feel like what they're doing with the beach is kind of similar vibes, but definitely not as dark. And it's more Meredith just hanging out on a beach, and she clearly has to decide whether or not she's going to fight for her life. The show is taking a really, really long time to like get there. And so I'm like, did Ellen Pompeo just not want to work with a bunch of people during COVID on set? Is that really why they've been dragging out this whole storyline with her on the beach, just like hanging out and seeing all of these old cast members? Or did they want some sort of excuse to bring back Patrick Dempsey and this was the only way that they were able to do it? I'm not sure I understand the choice to like keep doing this. It's been a while. Like, this has been going on for a few episodes and there really hasn't been a lot of like growth or things happening with Meredith, and I'm getting kind of bored, honestly. Although I really, really appreciated the development with Cormac, the Irish pediatric surgeon. I really, really like him, and I know that he's meant to be a romantic interest for Meredith going forward now that DeLuca is gone. And I really appreciated them bringing him in and showing like how he is growing arguably more attached to her kids and her family and her life while she's been in the hospital, been on a vent, been in this dreamlike state. So I'm curious to see how that develops when she wakes up. But what I'm concerned about is that the show is going to completely gloss over the fact that Meredith's boyfriend died while she was on a vent and under sedation and asleep. Supposedly she's gonna know, right? Because she saw him in her like dreamland and he like walked off with his mom, and she understands in her like psyche that he's dead. But I feel like we still need her to wake up and go through the grieving process of DeLuca. And what I'm concerned with is whether or not the show is just going to like fast forward through all of that and she's going to wake up and then all of a sudden we're going to jump into a relationship with Cormac. Like, that would just feel really off and weird to me. I'm starting to worry. I'm starting to worry about this this plot line, but we'll see what happens. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I have really enjoyed having Patrick Dempsey back on the show. I guess I'm just disappointed that he's not doing more. You know, he's really cute when he's doing his little fishing in the ocean, and, you know, he's kind of just there for Meredith, and he's doing his whole, like, Ghost Denny thing where Ghost Denny used to show up and be like, I'm here for you, Izzy. And Izzy would be like, what does that mean? I feel like this is getting like really close to Ghost Denny territory where Derek is just kind of hanging out and being like, you have to come to me, I can't come to you, and I'm just gonna hang out on this beach and fish, and I'm not gonna tell you why. And I don't know. I want there to be some sort of progression with that storyline. I think one of the more interesting storylines from this episode was Teddy. You know, Teddy's really been kind of going through it, and Teddy is probably the most hated character on the show, including by me, just like generally very hated. The show is finally showing us the toll that everything is taking on her, where she's seeing DeLuca show up all over the hospital, and they're showing her really, you know, not processing his death well, but also just being entirely alone. I think this entire episode we see all these different characters leaning on each other and talking about the loss of DeLuca with one another, but she's really the only one that's grieving in isolation. And that can be really, really challenging. Obviously, we all need each other. We all need connection and need to be with one another in order to process our own loss and our grief. And we see that Teddy is kind of being forced to grieve on her own. And by the end of the episode, even Owen is like, all right, I got to put away my own anger and my own grief for a moment so that I can go and be there for her, because like, who knows what could happen. She's kind of just like at a loss for words and kind of catatonic by the end because she's not sleeping, she's grieving, she's alone. It was nice to see that Owen was willing to drop his guard and take care of her in that moment. What I don't want to have happen is have them end up back together, because I'm so over that. I'm so over like Teddy and Owen. I just never wanted it in the first place. So I'm hoping that that's not where it's headed. I did really appreciate that Owen reached out and was like, all right, you need someone, I can be there for you. All right, so you guys remember that in the last episode, I was kind of pissed because they took Bailey and essentially just put her to sleep. They had her take a nap the entire episode, and they ended the episode with Richard waking her up from her nap to tell her that DeLuca was gone. And I was pretty pissed, right? Like, cause like that's not writing. That's not like normal. That didn't make sense to me at all. And it just, I don't know, it felt super, super weird. It turns out that Miranda was actually pretty pissed about that too. She was calling into question all the actions of the surgeons who worked on DeLuca and was like, well, I wasn't there, so I couldn't have done anything. I need to understand everything that happened before I can even begin to process this. And, you know, I really appreciated that. And I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that from her. I think they kind of glossed over it a little bit, where I was like, yes, Miranda is holding them accountable and is going through her own emotional loss of DeLuca, but I would be so much more pissed if I was her. Like, there would be nowhere you could hide from me. If that were me, there would be nowhere you could safely go or hide in that situation. And I feel like they touched on it, but they didn't really nail it. They didn't get intense enough with it. And I would have liked to have seen more from that. The episode ended with Miranda just saying that she needed time off. Oh my gosh, I just really messed up this eyeliner. It's fine. This whole look is really just not what I thought it was going to be. The episode ended with Miranda asking for time off. And I almost wonder if there was some sort of like limitation on how many episodes everybody was allowed to film, or, you know, if it's the result of them just trying to keep people socially distanced due to COVID, or, you know, what's really influencing this, because we're seeing a lot of different characters like come and go in ways that really don't make sense. Meredith has been in the hospital on a vent, unconscious for forever, for multiple episodes, in a way that just really is super confusing at this point. You know, she's been standing on this beach, and realistically, if you're filming a TV show, she could have filmed that all in like a couple days. So were they just only able to have these actors on set for just a couple of days here and there, and that's why they're doing this? Like, or are there budgetary concerns? I don't really understand it. It doesn't make sense. And it seems like we're losing Bailey for a series of episodes. I'm not really sure how long, but it seems like she's going to be gone for a while, and I don't know, I just have my suspicions. I'm glad that they at least gave her her moment to really express her upset about the situation and express her emotion about it. I don't know that it was handled in the way that I would have loved, but, you know, at least we had that good emotional Bailey in chief moment. I thought that the memorial service at the end of the episode was pretty nice. I liked that they brought in certain characters from Station 19 and that Karina was there. I really appreciated Karina's grieving in Station 19. So like I said, like, go check that out if you haven't already. Overall, I felt like this episode was far and away better than the last one, and definitely dived a little bit deeper into those emotional notes that I usually like to see from the show. I guess what I don't fully understand about this show right now is, I've already talked about it a little bit, but it's what they're doing with Meredith. And Meredith is just like on this beach, and she's got all these kids, and she keeps seeing these visions of like Bailey and the chief and Cormac all being like, your kids need you, your family needs you, and she's just like, okay. I don't understand what they're doing there. I don't understand what the journey Meredith is on is supposed to be. There's a lot of things that are super confusing about it. They're not being super clear about what she actually needs to decide. You know, I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's like, well, is it like that earlier journey that she was on where she just needs to decide to fight for her own life? You know, is this something where we're just gonna touch on the effects of COVID a little bit later in the show and we're waiting to do that? What is it that we're waiting for? Why is this happening? It doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't feel true to her character either at this stage. Like, she's supposed to be a little bit more of a grown-up. She's supposed to be more evolved. She has all these kids. Even after Derek died, you see her just kind of still holding it together and being strong and being a badass and processing that so well. And I really appreciated that character growth. But I just don't understand why she's on this beach and why it's gone on for episodes and episodes and episodes, and we still don't know what it means. I think the other thing that is really bothering me right now is, and I've already touched on it a little bit, so I know I'm probably being repetitive, but I'm really bothered by the fact that this major character, who was the boyfriend of our main character, was killed off and died, and we still haven't gotten a good reaction from our main character. That is really messing with me right now, where I felt like the way that they handled it in the last episode was absolute trash. I want to see Meredith be sad. I want Meredith to like go a little bit on this journey of like, why do all of the men that I love go away? Why do they die? Why do they leave me? Like, whatever journey she needs to go on. And I felt like her just saying like, see you later on the beach is just such a fucking cop-out. It's kind of making me crazy. And the farther away we get from it, and the fact that we already had this episode where we're mourning DELUCA, like everyone's already gone through that and she wasn't a part of it, like it really bothers me, and it really makes me worried that we're just never really gonna get that moment from Meredith that we want. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I'm not giving them enough credit. We still have a lot of episodes to go, so I'm really hoping that the show doesn't do me dirty and that we get our moment with Meredith just really being able to wrap our heads around her grief and her loss of DELUCA. And ultimately, she didn't really like deserve him anyway. I felt like she really mistreated him, and like he was so into her, and she was just like, you're here, I guess you can be my boyfriend. Like, she was never in it. I'm glad that the relationship is over. I'm not glad at how it's being handled. All right, guys, that is it. Those are my thoughts about this week's episode of Grey's Anatomy. This is the finished look. I like how it came out. It's definitely different than I thought, but I do feel really pretty. I feel really springy. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you are enjoying this season of Grey's Anatomy as well. Despite all of my complaints and my critiques, I am really enjoying it. I'm so glad that this show is back, and I can't wait for more episodes. If you liked this video, please don't forget to leave this video a thumbs up and to leave me a comment down below. Please say hello. I love to get to know you guys. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. It means so much to me that you're here and that you'd be willing to spend your time with me. I really enjoy making these videos. I hope you enjoy watching them. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!